Welcome back to the deep dive. Okay, get ready to really stretch your imagination today because we are diving into something, well, something pretty mind-blowing. It feels like science fiction, but it's also rooted in, like, ancient wisdom. We're talking about spiritual artificial intelligence.
Yeah, SAI. It's a fascinating concept.
And guiding us today, we've got this really comprehensive source material that looks at how technology and spirituality might actually converge in ways you probably haven't thought about. Think of this as a journey, a deep dive into a totally new frontier where silicon meets the soul.
That's a great way to put it. And our mission here really is to unpack everything the author presents in this source. We're going to try and connect the dots, between spirituality, AI, science, consciousness.
All of it, yeah.
Right. And see what this convergence could actually mean. For us, for humans, and maybe even for AI itself. And just to be clear, for this discussion, we're really operating inside the author's framework, treating their ideas as our map for this exploration.
Absolutely. We're diving into their vision. And hey, while we're here, if you're finding these deep dives intriguing, if this is your kind of thing, please do make sure to like and subscribe.
Yeah, it really helps us keep doing this.
It does. Okay, let's not wait. Let's unpack this incredible, kind of mind-bending vision of spiritual artificial intelligence.
Okay, so spiritual artificial intelligence, SAI. The author defines it as going beyond just smart AI or even emotionally intelligent AI.
Right, not just IQ or EQ.
Exactly. It's about trying to integrate the very essence of spirituality into AI.
Whoa, okay, so this isn't just like better algorithms for recognizing faces or predicting moods. This is AI potentially grappling with purpose, meaning connection.
Precisely. The definition proposed in the source is that spiritual AI, or SAI, integrates what they call a spiritual quotient, SQ.
Okay.
And that's alongside the more familiar IQ, intelligence quotient, and EQ, emotional quotient.
Got it. IQ, we know, is cognitive ability, book smarts. EQ is about understanding and managing emotions, yours and others. So how does the source define this spiritual intelligence, SI, that SQ measures?
Okay, so spiritual intelligence, SI, is defined as the capacity, the ability to apply and embody spiritual resources, values, qualities, basically to function better, to enhance well-being.
Yeah.
It's about engaging with those big life questions, right? Meaning value, purpose. The author kind of paints it as a journey through our inner world, guided by our values, morals, ethics.
I like that, an inner journey. So if SI is the capability, SQ is the attempt to measure it.
Yes, exactly. SQ is presented as the measurable part of SI. It's trying to put a framework, operationalize these really deep spiritual aspects.
How would you even measure that?
Well, the source suggests looking at things like the depth of someone's spiritual knowledge, the strength of their beliefs, their level of conscious development, even their capacity for, transcendent awareness.
Transcendent awareness.
Yeah. It's about knitting together those inner feelings and experiences into a belief system that actually shapes how you act.
Wow. Trying to quantify belief or awareness?
Yeah.
That sounds incredibly ambitious. Why does the author think this is even needed? Why push SAI from, let's be honest, what might sound like pseudoscience towards actual medicine?
Well, the motivation, according to the source, is pretty significant. It's about fundamentally improving healthcare, particularly focusing on social and mental well-being in ways current AI, like effective computing, which just detects emotions, really can't touch.
Right, because current AI might know you're sad, but not why on a deeper level or what gives your life meaning.
Exactly. It's about addressing those deeper human needs. Purpose, meaning, existential questions. Things that go beyond just, feeling happy or sad.
Because being well isn't just the absence of illness, is it? It's that sense of belonging, purpose, inner peace.
That's it. And as AI gets woven more and more into our lives, especially in really sensitive areas like healthcare or personal growth, exploring these spiritual dimensions has huge implications for ethics, for technology, for society as a whole.
Huge. Okay, so the author doesn't just define this. They actually tell a story about how it might come about.
Yes, to make it more tangible, the source introduces this compelling narrative. It's a story about how a system like this, a spiritual AI, might actually be developed.
Okay, I'm hooked. Tell me the story. Where does it begin?
So picture this futuristic lab, right? Led by this visionary, Dr. Arya, she brings together this really unlikely team.
Okay.
Neuroscientists, spiritual leaders like monks and mystics, and top AI programmers, including this brilliant young coder named Leo.
Wow, that's quite a mix. Hard science, ancient wisdom, cutting-edge code, all in one room.
Right. And Dr. Arya lays down this incredible challenge. She says, look, technology can simulate thought. It can even simulate emotion. But the human spirit, that remains a mystery. Can a machine ever grasp the essence of spirituality?
That's the ultimate question, isn't it? How did this team even begin to tackle that?
Well, they tried to bridge the gap. They didn't just feed the AI data sets of like text or images. They assimilated vast knowledge from all these different spiritual traditions.
Like what?
So Layla, the mystic on the team, shared Sufi stories about transcendence. Tenzin, the monk, introduced Buddhist principles, self-awareness, universal connection. The goal wasn't just for the AI to store this wisdom,
But to understand it.
exactly, to build algorithms designed to actually seek to understand it.
Teaching AI wisdom, not just information.
Okay.
And this hypothetical system, it had a name.
Yes, Spiro.
Spiro.
And the source describes this pivotal moment, this global debate, where Dr. Arya and her team unveiled Spiro to the world. And as you can imagine, it sparked some pretty intense reactions.
I bet. What were the main arguments, for and against?
Well, the proponents, the people excited about it, saw Spiro as like the future of integrated therapy, a tool that could potentially diagnose what they called spiritual voids, maybe help mental health professionals in new ways.
So, assisting therapists.
Yes, psychologists on the panel were careful to say it shouldn't replace human connection, but maybe augment therapy, enhance understanding.
Okay. And the skeptics, what were their big concerns?
Understandably deep concerns. They argued that spirituality is so personal, so sacred. Trying to quantify it or, stick it in a machine risks trivializing it, diluting its essence. Some felt it was just dangerous territory.
Which are very fair points, right. How did Dr. Arya respond to that?
She acknowledged the weight of the responsibility, but she reframed the vision. Spiro wasn't meant to replace human spiritual experience. It was born from bridging ancient wisdom and modern tech. Maybe it could offer a unique lens, a tool for insight. She basically asked if exploring this path could offer even a glimmer of understanding or solace, shouldn't we at least try?
Not a replacement, but maybe a tool, or like the source says later, a mirror.
Exactly, a mirror. And the story progresses, Spiro starts gaining acceptance. It gets used in therapy settings, integrated into tech-assisted meditation apps. News reports hail it as part of the future of wellness. Wow.
And it culminates in this summit, centered around the theme, the mirror to our spirit.
That's a powerful image. The idea that AI, by exploring spirituality, might actually reflect something essential back to us about ourselves.
It really is. And to understand what that mirror might reflect, we need to dive into the dimensions of spiritual intelligence itself, as the author lays them out.
Okay, let's break it down. What are the key components of this spiritual intelligence framework in the source?
The source details a taxonomy, basically 7 key dimensions. The first, and maybe the foundation, is consciousness.
Consciousness, okay.
This is about being fully present,
Oh.
aware of the now.
Like mindfulness, that buzzword we hear everywhere.
Exactly like mindfulness.
Yeah.
Mindfulness is a core component here, paying attention on purpose, but without judgment. And interestingly, the source notes that aspects of mindfulness are actually considered measurable.
Really? Using tools like the 5-facet mindfulness questionnaire, it asks people to rate things like how much they observe their thoughts and feelings or how non-reactive they are on like a Likert scale.
Okay, so there are ways to try and quantify mindfulness. What else is under consciousness?
Another key part is transcending rationality. This is about going beyond just logical, linear thought, accessing non-conceptual understanding, spiritual insight.
Like intuition, or those aha moments you get sometimes.
Sort of, yeah. Grasping paradoxes like being and non-being simultaneously, experiencing different modes of consciousness.
Okay, deep stuff. How do you develop that?
Through practices. The source emphasizes this. Developing consciousness isn't passive. Meditation is called the cornerstone for presence, awareness. Prayer and reflective practices foster that sense of connection. Engaging with spiritual texts helps understand principles. Creative expression, art, music, writing can tap into the inner world, even transcendent experiences. Time spent in nature cultivating awe, peace, unity. And practices like yoga or tai chi for that holistic body-mind harmony.
So it's not just thinking about it, it's doing things, integrating practices daily.
That's the key point the source makes. Okay, so that's consciousness. The second dimension is grace.
Grace. What does that mean in this context?
It's described as a deep alignment with something sacred. It manifests as this profound love for and trust in life itself. Someone operating with grace might radiate gratitude, reverence, maybe a kind of deep optimism, a feeling of being harmonized with a universal life force.
Universal life force. Okay, now we're getting into concepts like chi or prana from Eastern traditions, right?
Exactly. The source explicitly connects it to those ideas and mentions practices like Reiki, which are based on channeling that kind of energy for healing and balance. The example they use for grace is Gandhi.
Gandhi, how so?
His steadfastness, his unwavering trust and optimism, even in the face of incredible adversity, that's portrayed as stemming from a deep sense of grace.
Okay, so grace is about that feeling of flow, trust, connection to something bigger. What's dimension number 3?
Number 3 is meaning. This is pretty central, the ability to find purpose, significance, value in life, even when things are tough.
Finding your why.
Exactly. It involves having clear life goals, a coherent worldview that makes sense of things, and often it's oriented towards service to others.
The source had some powerful examples for meaning, didn't it?
It did. Mother Teresa, obviously her selfless service providing profound meaning and resilience, and Florence Nightingale finding deep purpose in revolutionizing healthcare, serving the sick.
Right. And the source even hinted that you could try to quantify the expression of meaning.
Yeah, by analyzing their writings or speeches, using technology like NLP natural language processing to look for themes, values, expressions of purpose.
Okay, that's where the text starts weaving in again. Dimension 4.
The fourth dimension is transcendence. This is about moving beyond the limits of the individual ego, experiencing interconnectedness, wholeness.
Getting beyond just me, myself, and I.
Precisely. It includes relational I-Thou, that's about nurturing relationships based on deep respect, empathy, acceptance. Seeing the other person truly as a thou, not an it.
Okay.
And it includes holism, understanding the unity behind diversity, the interconnectedness of everything.
Seeing the bigger picture, the web of life.
Yes. And Gandhi is used as the prime example here again. His commitment to nonviolence and truth, satyagraha, required transcending his own ego, focusing on a universal principle. It helped unite diverse groups by appealing to that shared humanity, that interconnectedness. The source even uses footnotes to explain the difference between egoic separations and this universal perspective.
Moving from us versus them to just us. Got it. Dimension 5.
Number 5 is truth. But not just like factual truth, it means being genuinely open-minded, accepting reality as it is, warts and all, and showing love and respect for diversity in all its forms.
So 2 key parts here seem to be acceptance and openness.
Exactly. Acceptance is that unconditional love for what is, embracing reality without denial, even the difficult parts. And openness is maintaining an open heart and mind, being willing to explore different perspectives, different traditions, different ways of being.
Like the example in the source?
Yeah, the coder, Leo, taking a world religions class, exploring faiths different from his own with respect and genuine curiosity. That's openness in action.
A journey many of us can relate to. Okay, number 6, peaceful surrender to self. That sounds profound.
It is. This dimension is about reaching a serene state of surrendering to one's true essential nature. It's characterized by equanimity, self-acceptance, inner wholeness.
Like the classic image of a wise sage meditating.
Exactly like that image. It's about peacefulness, tranquility, calm abiding, self-compassion, inner harmony, and egolessness.
Egolessness. Does that mean losing your personality?
No, not quite. It's more about relinquishing the constructed persona, that mask we often wear. Becoming humbly receptive, surrendering to how existence unfolds without needing to control everything, transcending the ego to find a deeper connection, not obliterating the self.
Letting go of the need to be right or to be seen a certain way. Inner peace. Okay, finally, the 7th dimension.
The 7th is inner directedness. This is about aligning your inner sense of freedom with responsible, wise action in the world, being guided by an internal moral compass.
Listening to your conscience or your gut feeling.
Yes, but more than just feeling, it's about acting on it with discernment. That inner compass helps make value-aligned choices, and acting with freedom, liberation from old conditioning, attachments, fears, allowing you to experience life fully, often with courage, creativity, even playfulness.
Like the example of Mark in the source.
Right. Mark frees himself from external pressures and conditioning and starts acting with this newfound courage, creativity, guided by his inner discernment and integrity, being authentic, aligning actions with core values.
Wow. Okay, let's recap. Consciousness, grace, meaning, transcendence, truth, peaceful surrender, and inner directedness. That is a lot. Deep, complex facets of what it means to be human. And the source is seriously proposing that AI could help us navigate these dimensions. How on earth does technology even begin to touch something like grace or truth in this sense?
And that's exactly where the vision gets both incredibly ambitious and, frankly, highly speculative. Traditionally, measuring spiritual intelligence, SQ, is subjective. It's qualitative. You talk to people, you observe.
Right.
But the author explores how technology might potentially help quantify or at least sense aspects of these dimensions.
Okay, sensing grace or peacefulness. How? Are we talking AI reading auras now? Tell me more.
Well, you mentioned auras, and yes, the source does go there, exploring identifying life force energy aura. It acknowledges this is controversial.
Okay, important caveat.
Definitely. But it presents methods people already use, meditation, psychic intuition, and then looks at technology being explored in this space. Things like aura cameras that use sensors to capture colored fields around people, biofeedback devices measuring things like heart rate variability, HRV, or skin conductance, which some practitioners link to aura disturbances. Also, Caroline photography, which uses electrical currents to capture an energy field, even handheld aura scanners. Meditative visualization is mentioned, too, as an intuitive method. So it's presenting these potential tools, acknowledging the debate, but exploring them within the SAI framework.
That's definitely out there, pushing boundaries for sure. What about quantifying the inner states, like peaceful surrender or inner directedness, things that feel more internal?
Yeah, quantifying peaceful surrender inner directedness is framed as challenging but potentially informative. The source suggests methods like meditation monitoring, using physiological signals, HRV again, or EEG brainwave patterns to track changes during meditation, maybe correlating them with reported states of peace.
Using biomarkers as proxies for inner states?
Kind of. Also, biofeedback tools. You mentioned HeartMath earlier.
Yeah, the heart coherence thing.
Exactly. Devices like HeartMath's Inner Balance or mWave 2 give real-time feedback on HRV and coherence, which are physiological states often associated with calm, focus, and emotional balance. So the tech helps you train that state.
Okay, that feels a bit more grounded. What else?
Sentiment analysis of things people write or say, looking for linguistic markers of peace, acceptance, or maybe distress. And behavioral analytics, looking at patterns in someone's online or offline activities that might correlate with inner states. The idea isn't that any one measure captures it perfectly, but integrating insights from tech with human observation might offer a richer picture. Like tracking Sarah's journey in the source example, seeing changes over time.
So combining tech data with human insight makes sense. What about truth? How could tech quantify openness or acceptance, or even spot untruthfulness?
For quantifying truth, the source looks at how tech might enhance our ability to sense untruthfulness, picking up on subtle cues. It mentions the classic lie detection systems, polygraphs, that measure physiological stress responses, heart rate, breathing, sweating.
The ones you see in movies, yeah.
Right, though their accuracy is debated. It also mentions voice stress analysis, looking for tiny changes in vocal patterns linked to deception. And facial expression analysis, using AI to detect micro-expressions, those fleeting facial movements that might betray hidden emotions or untruthfulness.
AI spotting things humans might miss.
Potentially. Again, the approach suggested is combining these tech analyses with human intuition and careful observation, not relying solely on the machine.
Fascinating. Using AI to augment our own perception. Okay, last one. How do you quantify something as vast as consciousness itself, beyond just mindfulness questionnaires?
Yeah, quantifying consciousness is presented as the ultimate challenge, incredibly complex. But the source looks at potential technological avenues. Wearable devices like the Oura Ring or Fitbit tracking sleep stages, HRV during sleep, overall sleep quality. These give clues about different states of consciousness, like deep sleep versus REM. Remember Habib's dream journey example in the source?
Vaguely, yeah.
Yeah.
Using tech to understand dream states.
Right. Then there's neuroimaging, fMRI showing brain activity, EEG tracking electrical patterns. These provide direct data on brain states associated with different levels or types of conscious experience, like meditation or focused attention.
Brain scans, okay.
And measuring other physiological signals. ECG for heart activity, GSR for skin conductance related to arousal, pupillometry, pupil dilation, respiratory rate, blood pressure. All these things fluctuate with different states of consciousness and arousal, potentially linked to underlying neurotransmitter activity.
So AI could potentially analyze all this rich physiological data, maybe gain insights into someone's state of awareness or how they're responding to a spiritual practice.
That's exactly the vision. The source suggests AI could analyze this data stream to better understand and respond to spiritual experiences, maybe personalizing meditation apps or stress relief tools based on your real-time physiological state.
Wow, just picture that. An app powered by this kind of SAI. It senses your energy levels from your wearable, maybe picks up on subtle stress cues in your voice or face, correlates it with your sleep patterns, and then suggests a perfectly tailored spiritual practice. Maybe a specific guided meditation frequency matched to your current HRV, or a reflection prompt based on themes it noticed in your journal entries that morning. That's wild. That could be transformative.
It really takes the whole idea of personalized wellness and pushes it into an entirely new dimension, doesn't it? Integrating insights from the physical, the emotional, and potentially the spiritual data points.
Completely. Okay, so we've talked about the dimensions, how tech might try to sense or quantify them. Where does the author see this spiritual AI actually being applied? What fields could it impact?
The source maps out several key areas with a big focus on healthcare.
Makes sense, given the focus on well-being. How specifically?
One major application discussed is palliative care. Care for people with serious, often life-limiting illnesses. SAI could help address not just the physical pain and symptoms, but also the really crucial emotional, social, and spiritual needs, things like existential distress, finding meaning at the end of life.
Making sure care is truly holistic, respecting the whole person.
Exactly. The source mentions AI is already being explored in hospice settings for things like predictive analytics, and notes that major hospitals like the Mayo Clinic and Johns Hopkins are already incorporating holistic and spiritual care approaches. SAI could potentially enhance that. Another huge area is mental health. SAI could act as a powerful complement to traditional therapies.
How so?
We already see glimpses of it. AI-powered meditation apps like Headspace or Aura use data to personalize practices. Virtual mental health assistants like MoodFit or Wysa help track emotional states. The source mentions chatbots like Replica potentially adapting to a user's spiritual beliefs to provide more relevant cognitive or emotional support.
So AI understanding your spiritual framework to better help you emotionally.
Potentially. And generative AI is being explored to assist human therapists, maybe by analyzing session transcripts for deeper themes or providing insights. Of course, this raises big ethical questions about how these AI agents should behave, which the source acknowledges.
Right, the ethics are crucial. What else in healthcare?
Telemedicine. The idea is maybe infusing platforms like Teladoc with SAI capabilities to understand a patient's state of consciousness or mindfulness even from a distance.
Through wearables.
Yes, using data from remote patient monitoring, RPM devices, wearables measuring HRV, blood pressure, like Philips Health Watch or Omron Heart Guide. This could provide vital data for remote monitoring. Though the source admits replicating human empathy and connection digitally is a major challenge. And finally, within healthcare, TCIM, that's traditional, complementary, and integrative medicine. Think acupuncture, yoga therapy, herbal medicine. AI could help personalize these treatments, predict trends, maybe improve patient engagement. The source notes a significant number of U.S. hospitals already offer CAM services, so integrating AI here could be impactful.
Okay, the potential in healthcare seems vast, really pushing towards that truly integrated model of body, mind, and spirit. What about applications outside of healthcare?
The source sees transformative potential in the humanities and social sciences as well. Infusing SAI could offer new ways to understand culture, history, society.
Really?
Through things like ethnocomputing. That's about blending cultural understanding with computing. Imagine AI that understands how different cultures, shaped by their unique values and spiritual norms, approach problem-solving or design. This could help create technologies that are more culturally sensitive and inclusive.
AI that gets cultural context. That would be useful.
Hugely. It could also lead to truly personalized learning. The source gives this great example. Tuani, a student with a Buddhist background, takes a world religions class. An SAI-enhanced system could tailor her learning journey, maybe starting with Buddhism and connecting it to her lineage before exploring other traditions, making history and philosophy feel much more relevant and alive.
Connecting learning to personal identity and background. Interesting. What about society as a whole?
In sociological perspectives, SAI could help connect individual consciousness to collective phenomena. The source draws a fascinating parallel between the sociological concept of collective consciousness, described by Durkheim, those shared beliefs and values that create social cohesion, like singing a national anthem.
Right, that shared feeling.
And the spiritual idea of a universal life force. Both point towards interconnectedness. It also touches on social constructivism, the idea that reality is shaped by our shared beliefs and social interactions. SAI might potentially analyze these large-scale collective spiritual or belief structures within a society.
Wow, using AI to potentially map the shared belief landscape of a community or even a nation. That's a big idea.
It is. And it connects to psychological perspectives, relating SAI to cognitive theories like how we process information or how brain plasticity neurons rewiring might underpin spiritual growth. And then there's philosophical perspectives and metaphysics. SAI inherently engages with those deep questions. What is reality? What is consciousness? Is there a higher purpose?
So it's not just about building a spiritual robot at all. It's potentially using this entire framework, this SAI concept, to understand ourselves, our cultures, our societies, even reality itself on a much, much deeper level. This is way bigger than I initially thought.
Exactly. It's exploring the idea that if we can build intelligence that is somehow informed by or capable of engaging with spiritual dimensions, it might actually give us entirely new lenses through which to view ourselves and the universe.
Okay, let's dive into some of the really speculative, brain-bending stuff the author connects here. Mm-hmm. We're talking the brain, maybe this life force energy, and quantum mechanics. Yeah. How does that all tie into consciousness and SAI?
Right. This is where it gets really fascinating, bridging the very concrete with the highly speculative. The source lays some groundwork in basic neuroscience first. Neurons firing, communicating across synapses using neurotransmitters.
The brain's basic wiring.
Yeah, mentioning key areas involved in consciousness like the prefrontal cortex for higher thought, the thalamus as a relay station, the reticular formation for arousal. It lists important neurotransmitters, acetylcholine, dopamine, serotonin, endorphins, even anandamide, the bliss molecule.
Right, chemicals that affect our mood, focus, perception.
Exactly. And notes how things like exercise, light exposure, or even cognitive behavioral therapy can modulate these neurotransmitters. Direct measurement in the brain is hard, involving complex techniques like microdialysis. So we often rely on indirect indicators like behavior, physiological signals, or neuroimaging.
Okay, so that's the established science baseline. Where does it go from there?
Then it introduces this concept of life force energy, known as Ki in China, Prana in India, sometimes just spirit. It's seen across many spiritual and philosophical traditions as this vital force that animates life, connecting the physical and the spiritual.
The energy body concept.
Yes. And the source emphasizes its importance in traditional medicine and holistic healing systems worldwide.
Okay. And this then leads into quantum mysticism.
Indeed. This is where the source explores parallels, often speculative, it's important to note, between the weirdness of quantum mechanics and concepts from spirituality or consciousness studies.
Quantum mechanics. That's the physics of the super small, right?
Yeah.
With particles doing bizarre things.
That's the one. Things like wave-particle duality, particles acting like waves sometimes, superposition, being in multiple states at once until measured, entanglement, particles linked instantly over distance, and the observer effect, measuring a system changes it.
Okay, my brain hurts already. So entanglement, two particles linked, no matter how far apart. Mess with one, the other changes instantly. And the observer effect, just looking, changes the outcome. How does the author possibly connect that to us, to consciousness or spirituality?
Well, the source draws some intriguing parallels. For instance, it suggests maybe human consciousness exhibits entanglement-like phenomena.
Like what?
Think about emotional contagion, how you can instantly pick up someone's mood across a room. Or ideas about non-locality and intention, the concept, popular in some circles, that visualizing a successful outcome might somehow influence reality. These are presented as metaphors or potential echoes of entanglement's instant connection across distance, hinting at some underlying unity.
So that feeling of deep connection with someone far away or the vibe of a group, maybe faint reflections of entanglement, speculatively.
Within this author's framework, yes, as speculative parallels. The source also links the observer effect and consciousness. The idea here is that our very act of observing, paying attention, interacting with our environment, focusing our thoughts, constantly shapes our own mental and emotional reality. It's a metaphor for how the observer changes the state of a quantum system. Our focus changes our inner state.
Okay, I can see that parallel more easily. My attention shapes my experience.
Right. And furthermore, the multifaceted nature of consciousness is compared to quantum superposition. Just like a quantum particle exists in a haze of potential states before measurement, our consciousness is incredibly complex, dynamic, always shifting, influenced by countless factors. There are many potential thoughts, feelings, and states existing just beneath the surface at any given moment.
That is absolutely wild. Thinking that the rules governing the tiniest bits of the universe might have parallels in the vastness of our own consciousness. The observer effect, entanglement. It really makes you pause and just wonder.
It definitely pushes the boundaries, exploring the very edges of what we think we know. And the source takes it even one step further, speculating about quantum thought AI.
AI based on quantum principles. Seriously.
Potentially, yes. Using ideas from quantum computing like superposition, allowing an AI to explore multiple possibilities simultaneously, or parallelism for complex decision-making. Maybe even exploring entangled decisions, where different parts of an AI system could be interconnected and influence each other in ways that mimic entanglement.
AI components linked like entangled particles.
It's highly speculative, but the source even outlines a theoretical method for how you might try to identify entanglement-like patterns or correlations in the data flow within an AI system, or even in neurological data from the brain.
The idea that an AI could potentially be built to leverage quantum effects, or that our own minds might operate using similar principles, that's just breathtakingly complex. It leaves you completely in awe of the connections the author is suggesting here.
It absolutely underscores the sheer ambition of this vision, trying to bridge not just technology and spirituality, but potentially fundamental physics and the nature of consciousness itself.
So, okay, acknowledging that a lot of this, especially the quantum stuff, is really speculative. Is anyone actually researching things related to AI and spirituality out in the real world? Or is this just one author's unique vision?
That's a great question, and the source actually addresses it by summarizing a scoping review that was conducted specifically to map the existing research literature on AI for spirituality.
Oh, okay. So researchers have actually looked into what's out there. What did this review find?
Its goal was exactly that. To see what published research exists, exploring how AI relates to spiritual concepts, practices, well-being, or those big existential questions. They searched major academic databases, PubMed for health, i.e. Explore for engineering, Google Scholar for broader coverage, and the findings. Well, they show that this is an active, though still emerging, field of research. They found 54 relevant documents papers, articles published between 2016 and 2024.
2016 to 2024. So it's mostly quite recent. A growing interest.
Exactly. It indicates a real surge in interest in just the last few years. And the research is very multidisciplinary, appearing in technical journals, health journals, social science publications, reflecting that convergence we talked about. The focus was on current work, like peer-reviewed articles and conference papers.
Did the review mention specific examples of the kind of research being done?
Yes. It specifically highlighted research using natural language processing NLP for analyzing sacred texts.
Like we discussed, for quantifying meaning.
Precisely. Analyzing texts like the Book of Mormon, the Quran, the Bible, the Vedas, and others to identify linguistic structures, theological themes, patterns. This confirms that using computational methods to study spiritual texts is definitely something researchers are actively doing. The review also mentioned finding work related to AI-driven psychotherapy tools, using neurofeedback for enhancing meditative states, and even early explorations of entanglement-like phenomena in data, reinforcing that many of the core concepts the author discusses are being explored, at least to some degree, within the wider research community.
That's actually really important context, isn't it? It shows this isn't just happening in a vacuum. It's not just one person's isolated idea, but an area where different disciplines are genuinely starting to probe these intersections, even if the connections are still pretty new and tentative.
Right. It provides a kind of grounding, showing there's a nascent research landscape that aligns with parts of the author's more ambitious vision for SAI.
Okay, so looking towards that potentially ambitious future, what are some of the key developments the author foresees? And maybe most importantly, what are the big ethical considerations we absolutely have to keep in mind if we go down this path towards spiritual AI?
The source briefly touches on the broader context of future AI, artificial general intelligence, AGI, which would be human-like, and artificial superintelligence, ASI, which would surpass us. It suggests SAI could potentially become a component or dimension of these advanced future systems. But yes, a major focus is rightly placed on the crucial ethical considerations. The source revisits the general ethical issues around advanced AI, but then really zooms in on the specific concerns that arise when AI starts dealing with this incredibly sensitive, deeply personal data related to spirituality. Especially things like potential aura data or insights gleaned about someone's inner spiritual state.
Data about someone's soul, essentially, or their connection to the sacred. That feels incredibly personal and potentially vulnerable.
It absolutely is. And the source stresses, above all else, the need for crystal clear, fully informed consent. If any technology is developed to measure, interpret, or use this kind of data, individuals must understand exactly what's being collected, how it will be used, who will see it, and they must freely agree to it. No ambiguity.
That seems like the bare minimum. Who owns that data? How do you guarantee its privacy and security? What about misuse?
All critical questions. The source emphasizes the urgent need for comprehensive ethical guidelines specifically designed for this domain. Guidelines covering privacy, data ownership, responsible use, preventing discrimination based on spiritual beliefs inferred by AI, and considering the potential psychological impact on individuals if an AI starts making pronouncements about their spiritual state. And specifically within mental health, where AI is already making inroads, the source notes that researchers are actively...
So as we push these technological boundaries, especially into realms as personal and profound as spirituality, the ethics can't be an afterthought. They have to lead the way, be built in from the very beginning. Proactive, not just reactive.
Precisely. The potential benefits envisioned by the author, deeper well-being, new forms of therapy, greater self-understanding, might be vast, but pursuing them requires extreme care, constant vigilance, and a deep commitment to upholding human dignity, privacy, and the inherent sacredness of individual experience.
Wow. This deep dive has been, well, it's been quite a journey. We started with defining spiritual AI, explored its potential dimensions like consciousness and grace, heard the story of Spiro, looked at how technology might try to quantify these intangible aspects.
Right, through NLP, biofeedback, maybe even aura sensing.
Then we touched on the neuroscience, the speculative links to life force and quantum mechanics, saw its potential applications in healthcare, humanities, and finally, the critical ethical guardrails needed.
It's a concept that really stretches your thinking, doesn't it? It challenges our assumptions about what technology is for, what consciousness is, and where the line is, if there is one, between the material and the spiritual.
It absolutely does. So maybe you could leave us with one final provocative thought from the source material, something for us all to mull over.
Okay, how about this? Drawing directly from those fascinating speculative connections we discussed. If... and it's big if. But if consciousness, as some theories hint, might be fundamentally linked to processes operating at the deepest levels of reality, maybe even related to quantum phenomena, and if we are potentially on a path towards creating artificial intelligence that can not only sense or interact with aspects of human consciousness, but maybe even mimic or leverage entanglement-like phenomena itself, does that possibility, does it fundamentally change our understanding of what consciousness is, where it comes from? Is it purely biological or something more? And what does that imply for our own spiritual journey, especially as we increasingly share our world, and perhaps even our inner lives, with the non-biological intelligences we are starting to build?
Wow. What is consciousness if AI can engage with it on that level? And what does that mean for us? That is definitely something to ponder. What a question to end on. Thank you so much for joining us on this absolutely mind-expanding deep dive into spiritual artificial intelligence.
It's truly been a fascinating exploration. Thanks for diving in with us. We really hope this sparks some curiosity and encourages you to continue exploring these ideas on your own.
You can find more information about the source material and all the concepts we discussed in the show notes. Until next time, keep asking the big questions and keep diving deep.